Welcome to SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home program. I'm Jenelle Riley from Variety. Before we're joined by today's guests, I want to let you know that the SAG-AFTRA Foundation is a nonprofit organization that relies entirely on donations to provide emergency assistance and free educational programs to SAG-AFTRA artists. This conversation is made possible thanks to the generosity of our supporters. Over the past year, the foundation has given over $6.5 million in COVID relief to more than 7,000 performers. So if you are a SAG-AFTRA artist and you need help, please ask. And if you can help, please give. Information can be found in the description of this video. And now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce from What Breaks the Ice, writer-director Rebecca Eskreis, and actors Madelyn Cline, Sofia Hublitz, Lukas Gage, and Joel Allen. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.
Now, this is an audience of SAG-AFTRA actors, your fellow union performers. So I actually always like to start by asking the actors, how did you get your SAG card? And let's start with Joel.
I did a guest star on the Duplass Brothers show, Room 104 for HBO.
Wow.
About 4 years ago. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm. It was a glorified co-star, if I'm honest, but we got in the contract that I was a guest star. So I got my card that way, and I could actually afford to pay to join.
And Sofia, for you, how did you get your SAG card?
I got my SAG card from being on 2 episodes of Louis when I was 14.
No.
Louis C.K.'s FX TV show.
Lucas, what about for you?
Mine was also a glorified co-star on Enlightened, but I got cut because I was so bad. So, Joel, you're winning.
Were you really bad, or are you being facetious? Because
I was like actually vomiting in between takes because I was so nervous. Lauren like rubbed my back while I threw up on set.
Well, I mean, Mike White gave you another role, so I feel like maybe you weren't as bad as you thought. I
think I was like really good at being like charming and nice, and I think he felt really bad for me when he saw my White Lotus audition. So I think he gave me a shot.
Madelyn, what about for you?
Once again, glorified co-star. It was on, I think it was the originals for the CW.
Okay. Rebecca, what about for you? What was sort of your first job as a director, or the first time you felt you could call yourself a filmmaker?
That's a great question. Well, I'm in New York now, but I spent a lot of years in LA, and I always felt like you can't walk around and call yourself a director because a lot of people do that. So probably didn't, but I guess, I don't know, I directed a short film about 11 years ago that I'm really proud of. And I think that's when I finally felt like I've been wanting to do this my whole life, but since I knew what directing movies was, but I would say probably that short film, I was like, all right, I can do this. I think I can figure out how to do this. It might take a long time, but I'll figure it out.
So I want to start at the beginning with Rebecca, because it's hard to believe this film marks your feature directorial debut. It's so accomplished and assured. And I believe it was made with some help from the Austin Film Society. Can you talk about, where sort of the initial idea for the film came from and how it sort of developed over the years?
Sure. I mean, I always say, I think, I'm so grateful to all the people here, amongst many others. There's no movie without great talent. And I was quite blessed with the talent that is on screen here. It's kind of an interesting bookended story with AFS, because the inspiration for the film initially started after seeing Richard Linklater's film Boyhood. And I got to go see him do like an in-person screening at the IFC Center in New York. And I started thinking about what would a story called Girlhood written by me look like. And I always say I never killed anyone, but, a lot of the other elements in the story were inspired by, conversations I had as a teenager. And then having the opportunity, I lived in Austin for a few years, and having the opportunity to win a grant from AFS and then be mentored by Mr. Linklater and several other incredible directors and producers really helped the film kind of go from an idea of a movie I was going to direct to actually happening. And actually, that's where I met met Joel for the first time. And he participated in a table read that we did. And he had been part of another film that had been through the Austin Film Society grant cycle, which actually our cinematographer, Greta, had shot, called Never Going Back. So all the pieces started to sort of fit together. And it was kind of a nice, beautiful full circle, I think, with a filmmaker that I greatly admire. And I was really fortunate to have that experience.
That's great. And for the actors, how did the script find its way to you, and what interested you not only in your roles, but in the project overall? And let's start with Joel, because sounds like you were involved pretty early on. Yeah,
well, like she said, I was a veteran of the Austin Film Society intensive. But I guess Holly Herrick told you to reach out to me, right, Rebecca?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who is one of the people there. But Rebecca just emailed me out of the blue when I needed to work badly for my own sanity. And that's about it. It was fun to be on the ground floor of the project and develop that and get it on its feet. So I had this thing for a year before we ever get on set. So let the scripts, seep in, and I could develop the character over time. I'm not a quick study by any means.
Sofia, what about for you? How did the role of Sammy find its way to you?
Honestly, the most basic way that anything really comes into your inbox. It was just an email from my agents, but I had later found out that I guess it was a direct request from Rebecca, but they usually don't. They don't always say that as to not excite you. But I got the script and it was attached, not for a tape, but for a meeting with Rebecca. And I read the script, and I remember meeting her at a hotel on the beach in Santa Monica. And what I loved so much about Rebecca is that she was so open to the film and me and the two of us sort of having this collaboration. It was as much of an experience creatively for me as it was for her. And so I wanted to work with her because I knew that I felt like my ideas were going to be heard later down the line. And well, I guess she wanted to work with me too, because, here we are.
Yeah. Madelyn, for you?
I think pretty much in the same vein as, Sofia's experience. I got an email. I was visiting some friends in New York, and I had just come off of another project. And it was a script attached for interest, like to meet with Rebecca. And I was like, well, I would love to continue working. And so I read the script, and then a couple of days later met Rebecca in LA at La Brea Bakery, was it?
Yeah.
And we met, and we had just like a really wonderful, engaged conversation about the script and the character. And, Rebecca told me about like her upbringing, and I, talked to her about mine, and she ended up getting back to me and saying that she just really felt like, it was going to be that she would like to have me on. And I was just excited because I just felt like it was going to be very much of a collaboration, and just a really fun, immersive experience. It's always fun to be on location, especially where we were, Fishkill. And small town, like it's really, it's especially when you're talking about being on location in small towns, it feels like once you get there, you're already like in a bit of a character study. Like you kind of start to feel like the vibes of the town, and you're starting to meet your cast, and it was just a really fun couple months, and never looked back.
Lucas, what about for you?
I was not a direct meeting.
I was about to say, this all sounds like
such a
so
dream.
Easy.
No, I was actually I was in a backpacking trip in Portugal, and I remember I had a lot of auditions being sent, and I just kind of passed on a lot of them, but I remember reading the script and thinking that it was so well written and so interesting. And I did it in a hostel, and it was one of those scenarios that I think if you just don't really try too hard, or you're kind of in a hurry to get back to your life, that you end up doing better work. So I guess it worked out for me. Or I also looked a lot like the kid that was already cast as my brother. Rebecca, you can tell me.
That was the secret.
That was the secret.
Rebecca, can you actually kind of talk about putting together an ensemble? And, it sounds like in general, these were straight offers and most people didn't audition. I mean, how did you sort of know that it would all work and they would all fit into place?
I think, being a writer director, it's like kind of there's such different skills in my mind. Writing is so solitary. You're just like by yourself with these like fake people you've created in your mind. And then the directing part of it for me is so visceral, where you just kind of have to like trust your instincts. And I think like even to what Sofia and Maddie were talking about, like it was such an incredible collaboration with them, and obviously with Joel, Lukas, and all the rest of the cast, where I just kind of felt like when I met someone that to me got the role, got the script, and I could just feel they were the right person for it. And I don't know how to explain it any other way. And you just have to kind of, especially with any creative endeavor, but especially an independent film, which is kind of like, there's so many gambles that you make in putting a film like this together. I just kind of went with my instinct of who I felt would be right. And even to Lucas's point, it wasn't a meeting per se, but I watched a lot of tapes and I was like, that's the guy. And I actually, to your point, I actually don't remember who was first. I might have actually made the decision in the same night. I was living with my mom at the time because I was actually living in LA, and I'd come back to New York just to get the movie going before we went up to Fishkill. And I was just sitting in my mom's kitchen at like 2:00 in the morning, like watching tapes, and you just kind of feel like, okay, this is who it is. And it's part of, I think it's part of the magical process of what we do.
Madelyn touched on something about the audition process, and I know that it can be so challenging. And I'm wondering if any of you have advice on sort of surviving the process as actors and, letting it go when you're done with it. Lukas was talking about, when you have other things to concentrate on, sometimes it helps. And, it's very easy for people to say, like, you have to not want it too badly, but sometimes you really want it badly. And Rebecca, I'd love to know from you if there's anything you would like actors to know if, they're able to audition for you.
I think there's a lot of different aspects that go into casting because people are also different, and therefore acting is, who you're looking at for what role is so different. But for me, I really like to get to know the person. And I think that this may sound like a cliche, but I think it actually proves to be true. You want to work with good people, and you want to have good people around you. And I say this like not just because of present company, like there was not a weak link on this film as far as every person that I worked with. And I think that just keeping that in mind when I am auditioning with someone or having a conversation with someone, I want to like feel like we get along and that we can have honest conversations, and that I think that's ultimately what always ends up on screen without even trying.
That's always going to be really advantageous to the creative process too when you're making a film, because everybody has to get along, especially on set, especially when you are dealing with subject matter like this. All the puzzle pieces have to fit, and everything mostly has to be copacetic most of the time, because sometimes you can't always just emulate these relationships and these feelings, but that goes the same way for the director and the actor too. All the emotions have to be collated, I guess. Everyone's got to be in line with each other so that it can get done, and everyone's vision and voice at the end of the day gets heard, and then that's translated on screen.
And for the other actors, are you at that place where you're able to do an audition and leave it behind? Or do you have any advice to other actors on sort of surviving the process?
No, I don't know if that ever changes. At least it doesn't change for me. sometimes, like Lukas was saying, you have certain circumstances, or you have just like life is getting ahead of you and you have a tape to do, and you're just like, okay, let me just get this done because there's a lot of other things that need my attention right now. And sometimes I kind of like to like equate it to like when you're fiddling with something, like your attention is divided, and sometimes like that helps you be more present. Like, I don't know, for me at least, like doodling or like fidgeting or like something, like I feel like sometimes your best work is when you're able to let go and not hold on so tight to it. But that's hard. And that's the majority of the time, that's not the way it is for me. Like, I get an audition and I care so much about it, and I invest so much into it because I care. And I think a lot of us do. But I think, for your own mental sanity, you have to learn how in your process to also let go and realize that it's literally fine. Things don't work out for a reason, but it doesn't make it any easier.
Yeah. I think what Madelyn's saying, yeah, I agree with. I try to have a fulfilled life with a lot of other things that aren't acting. So I can get done with my audition that I'm obsessing over for a few hours and then go take a class of, I don't know, sculpture or whatever. I never took a sculpture class. That's bullshit. But like I try to see friends and go dancing and like go to movies and try to keep myself fulfilled so I'm not upset. There's a difference between needing something and wanting something. I want everything, but I try not to need it. When you start to need anything, I think energetically, not to get like woo-hooey witchy on it, but like people can feel that, and it's like dating. You don't want to date someone who needs you. You want to date someone who wants to be with you. Sorry, I don't know what I'm talking about. Go on, take
Damn,
over.
I felt like I just went through therapy.
Yeah. And I'm a big
and you're
believer
wearing that beautiful crew neck. I mean, my God, it's just, I get lost in your eyes.
Happening.
It's a little bit of a turtleneck. It's like a half turtle.
A mock neck. It's a mock neck.
Yeah, thank you for noticing.
and I'm a big believer in, if something doesn't work out, there's something better down the road, probably.
See.
Joel, what about for you?
I just look at how unlikely it is that I'm going to get the role. And like, that's not to say anything against me. It's just there are thousands of fuckers who are taping for these things. And I go on Vimeo. That's one of my guilty pleasures, is after I film an audition, I'll go on Vimeo and see these random guys in the middle of nowhere taping for the same thing. And you're like, oh, everyone is seeing this same role. The odds of me getting this are so tiny, and there are so many star name actors out there. Like, why me? I know it's like also why not me, but dude, relax, go on with your life. This is like,
that's a very valid point, because I have done that before and I've just been absolutely shattered. Also, check yourself just to make sure you can handle that, because I've had a few I've had a few depressive episodes from watching other people's Vimeos, because sometimes you compare. But it's very true. It's a very good point. Like, there's so many people who are out here auditioning, and so many talented actors. And sometimes even sometimes even now getting auditions, I'm like, why, what? I don't understand. Like, and sometimes you just don't feel like you're worth it, but you still are. And it, you should still care. But I think there's something to all of everyone's points, like having a fulfilled life and making sure that you are still living and experiencing things that you can pull from, and also keeping the humility that you still have to put your best foot forward.
Yeah, exactly. Echoing everything Maddie said. And it's like, every time I get an audition, I always think like, oh, every other female client under the age of 27 is probably getting the same exact tape as well. It's like you have to take what comes in the inbox with a grain of salt in terms of your odds of getting the job, but that's what makes it taping so fun. And at the end of the day, doing tapes, it's work, just like going to set and having a job is work. Tapes are work. You have to put in the same amount of effort, even if it's not as many pages on the day. You have to tape. The way that how I always see tapes is like, oh, I have this job, I have this job, and this is everything I'm going to bring to it. This is what it is. And then it goes out in the world. And then more often than not, you never really hear a beep, but that's just how it goes. I think when the more you audition and the more you're sort of, I guess, immersed in the biz, you'll come to find that almost all of it is a shot in the dark. And that's why it's so exciting when you get a job. It's like the coolest thing in the world when you get a new job. It's like, it's worth it. All of the not hearing back and just doing these tapes for what feels like nothing, but it's not nothing. It's worth it when a job comes along.
I didn't know you could go on and watch other people's auditions on Vimeo. This is a thing?
Depends if they make them public. Some people do.
Okay, so is this the equivalent of like you being in the waiting room and somebody in the audition room and you can hear them killing it?
Kind of.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. If you want to look at it that way.
It's me to know that there are other people out there finding different angles to approach
Yes.
it. And I'm as inspired as I am, brought back to reality. I do find it fun, and especially if, I really appreciate their approach. It makes me feel better about the next time I grab something. I go, there are no rules. Because between the two of us, I like both, right?
Yeah. It's interesting. You were talking about working in the small town. It's really called Fishkill. That's
Fishkill, baby. Maddie. I just
Yes, it's really called Fishkill.
that is amazing. I mean, with a film that, is dealing with issues of class divides, and particularly in these small towns, obviously there's a lot of intense material. You all have such great chemistry together. And, I'm wondering if, being sort of isolated in a town together and thrown in and told to work on this intense material, did that chemistry sort of happen naturally, especially between Madelyn and Sofia? I mean, so much of the movie hinges on it.
I mean, I guess I'll start with this if you don't mind, Maddie. But I think the very first time we met was the table read. That was just the three of us, you, Madelyn, and me and Rebecca. And I remember it sort of when we met, just our first time meeting alone, it was, I guess, friendship, love at first sight, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. We really had such an intense sort of friendship chemistry that we carry on to this day. And it's like, when you read the script, that sort of has to be here, because it's a very hard thing to emulate, two very fast, quick best friends. And we were so lucky to sort of have that with each other, because we did become really fast, quick best friends. And it's so beautiful, I think, that you get to see that sort of immortalized on the screen. But same with when we met Lukas, because, you're going to become pretty fast friends with people who you live on the same hotel floor with in the middle of nowhere. Because, man, did we get into some trouble.
That's a whole other movie I want to see.
Do you?
Yeah. What was it? What was the diner name?
The Red Line Diner.
Red Line Diner Diaries.
Shout out Red Line Diner.
That's the onion rings I ever did have.
Whatever that sauce was. Do you remember that?
I don't know. It changed every day, and I wasn't upset at it.
For the townies, like Joel and Lukas, how much did actually being in Fishkill help you with your characters?
Man, that experience in New York is kind of, I don't know what happened up there to all of us. It was really strange, unsettling. It was overcast for half the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's something very unsettling about upstate New York as much as it is beautiful.
Yeah.
I felt every bit of that.
Not to say that there's like a city underbelly, but there is this underlying air of like, I don't want to say creepiness, but just yeah, no,
It's
maybe
a little haunting. And it was like, especially like the fog and, you know, like, I mean, it was very overcast. It was just, it was gloomy and ominous. And I think it was, you know, perfectly fitting.
Mm-hmm.
We were filming by where Hillary Clinton took her walks.
Are you serious?
Near traffic law. Near there. That's all I could think about. That's like what comes to mind for me.
I just remember we were next to whatever the town of Sleepy Hollow, New York.
Yeah.
That's
that
a real place? Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah. They have reenactments. They do the whole thing.
Oh wow.
Oh man.
Well, I think it lends itself to the movie, and you all are so fantastic. I want to congratulate you all on a beautiful movie. And on behalf of the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, I just want to thank you for sharing your experiences, process, and craft with your fellow performers.
Of course.
Thank you so much.